Hi, I'm Vlad from Film Culture, and welcome to my basement. I think the biggest difference between a collector and a hoarder is whether it's easy to navigate through your collection. If you have aisles and you can easily go through these aisles without things falling on you, you're still a collector. If you can't see the floor and there's danger of things falling on you, then you're a hoarder. I see a lot of people showing their collections online. There are film collector groups and they are showing their little cases saying, oh look, I have 50 cameras in my collection. Oh look, I have 100 cameras in my collection. And I was always trying to estimate how many cameras do I have. Like, I definitely have more than 1,000. Probably maybe around 1,500, depending if you count the broken ones or not. One of my day-to-day activities is browsing ads on Facebook Marketplace, on Kijiji, looking for more items to add to my collection. And then I see this ad and it says, I'm selling my collection of over 2,000 cameras. And I'm thinking, what? And some photos are showing Nikon rangefinders, and there's a few Leicas, and there's some Hasselblads, and I'm like, this would totally double my collection. Like, yes! So, okay, let's say the seller approves my bid. How do I bring it home? It's 1,500 kilometers away. I don't really have money sitting around. The borders are closed. I need to get a truck that's big enough, regular van or a tiny U-Haul truck. I already have so much stuff. And then I sat down with my wife, and she's usually the voice of reason. And I said, well, baby, imagine this. Right now, I'm kind of part-timing this film store, and it's doing pretty well. And now I can double everything, and I'll have to deal with 2,000 new cameras and figure out what to do with them, what to keep, what to sell, and how, and test. And she said, well, you're an adult. You have to decide whether you're okay taking on technically a full-time job. That was quite a revelation because, wow, doing this full-time, yeah, that's something I can do. Yeah. I asked myself who would want to sell a collection that they spent decades building. I looked through the photos and it was rooms filled with shelves, and all shelves were full of cameras. Why would they want to just let it go? And I learned Mario's story. It's a fairly common one in today's situation. Mario was a very successful photographer in New Brunswick, and everybody knew him. He was a household name basically. If you needed anything photography related, he was the go-to guy for graduation photos in that area. And then he opened a travel agency, and he traveled the world for quite a few years, and everywhere he would go, he would visit a camera shop and pick up some interesting piece there. So he really put his heart and soul into that collection, but then the COVID hit. Your photography business is done, and your travel business is absolutely completely destroyed. He waited for probably a year. He was very successful with his travel agency business, but he decided to let his collection go to get some cash in hand. The ways I bought previous collections, like I just show up and say, all this is gonna go away, and you're gonna end up with a bunch of money. You don't have to worry about some stuff left behind. Everything is gonna be gone, and you will end up with cash. So I had to make an offer. I had to beat a lot of other competition who were also looking at this. The guy was in New Brunswick, which is 1,500 kilometers away. And immediately after that ad was posted, there were dozens of people linking each other saying, oh, look at this. Oh, you should totally get that. Oh, wow, is this something we can pull off? So yeah, I think there were about 60 comments by the time I responded to this ad. There were people from the States who wanted to come and buy this entire collection. There were people from the UK who said, we're gonna send a shipping company over, they're gonna pack everything up and they're gonna ship it to the UK. And I thought, this is nuts. This is gonna double the price of everything. I guess they are really hungry for cameras in the UK. But luckily the borders were closed because of COVID, so I had this unique advantage. I looked at all the photos. I looked through every single camera in it, which were hundreds. I think there were 800 plus cameras in the photos. I priced them out roughly, and I thought, okay, I guess the worst thing that can happen is I bring it to Ontario and I sell it for $5,000 more, and I break even. Or this may be a fascinating opportunity. So when I took care of the money part, when I had an idea of the logistics part, when I had the idea about the storage part, I messaged him saying, okay, I can come pick it up. So he said, yeah, this is cool. Yay. I'm doing these videos specifically that he knows that his collection is not just going to be flipped, but I want to make it a legacy, and I want to make sure that it's in good hands. And so it was a lot of back and forth, and he did a tremendous job packing everything up, and it was already in boxes when I showed up. So yeah, I would not be able to do this without all the effort on his end. But yeah, the logistical part was okay. The guy says it's a 26-foot truck, which is like a 4-room moving truck. I drove one of these. They're like a school bus, and I drove it for 80 kilometers, and here we're talking 3,000. I was actually even thinking about flying to New Brunswick, getting a truck there, and driving it back. Not a good idea. Flying in Canada is incredibly expensive. So I started calling the truck rental companies, and finally it went with budget because I know budget, and the sales guy was really nice. So New Brunswick is very strict with their restrictions. That's why when Ontario has 400 cases per day, New Brunswick has 4. They had this policy where when the borders were closed, you had to quarantine for 14 days, and when they lifted it up, you had to still go on their website, register, get an approval, and provide a proof of vaccination. I didn't have my second dose, but I already had just 3 days before I'm leaving, and I had to fill out this form on the website 5 days before I'm leaving. So I was like, so what do? I said, okay, I'm already vaccinated. So I filled out the form. It automatically got approved on the same day. I got my vaccine the day after, and it worked out perfectly because on the border, it was actually probably stricter than when you're crossing to the States and back. They had border officers, they had cars ready to chase anybody who's trying to get through. They had multiple levels of security where they said, are you registered? What's your number? Okay, pull over to that officer there, and they're going to check your all your information. So they had all my data in the database. They had to pull it out by the authorization number. They looked at my vaccine approval, looked at my ID, checked where I'm going, and only then they let me in. So if I were to procrastinate and say, oh yeah, I totally registered, and showed up at the border, they would totally turn me back. So good thing I actually followed through with that. Another constraint I had is that I didn't want to go alone. That's a huge undertaking. So my wife volunteered to go with me, but she has a full-time job, even though it's remote. So she said, I can sacrifice one work day, but not more. So essentially we had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to do the whole thing. And more interesting part is that in that little village in New Brunswick, all banks are closed on the weekend. We basically had 24 hours between the transaction end to the point where she had to start working the day after from our home. Driving there was not too bad because it was Saturday morning. We left really early, and we got out of Toronto area by around 10 o'clock. And once you're past Toronto, pretty much anywhere in Canada, it's a breeze to drive. And in this big truck, it's like you're on a boat. It's just going through, you're keeping the same speed, you're looking around and watching the sights. So I really, really love driving. This is one part that I love about running this business. I can see a collection pop up in Northern Ontario, and I'm like, oh, this is 5 hours away. I can do it in a day. So I really love driving a lot. It's like a meditative experience for me. I already drove from Toronto to Nova Scotia, from Toronto to Vancouver, from Toronto to Miami. So that's not a big deal. I know my limits, and I know that I'm able to do that. Driving a truck is a slightly different story because my day-to-day car is a fairly small sedan, so it takes some time to get used to it. But at the same time, you're not driving in Toronto area traffic. You're not driving in a big city. You're driving on an empty highway, and on an empty highway, it's a pleasure, and you just get to look around and enjoy the nature and enjoy your time. Another situation that was going on, and that's why I wanted to make it back as quickly as possible, is this was my wife and mine first time away from our 2 rescue dogs. So we went away, and dogs were very sad, and we wanted to get back to make sure that they know we didn't abandon them. So that was one big reason why we pushed so hard to make a home, and we did. Around 1 o'clock, I was in my driveway with a truck full of cameras. So I know that my wife has work in the morning and I have to unload everything. So basically my 74-year-old mother helped me unload this truck. She is a very sporty senior lady. Yeah, and I can't thank her enough for helping me. But basically, in about 3 hours, we actually unloaded the entire truck into her garage. So I thought that would be over. Okay, I got everything. The money part's done. The logistic part's done. It's all in the garage. So now it's all hunky-dory. But apparently this is only when the work starts. I have this massive chunk of boxes in the garage that's pretty much taking up all of the space. And what happens now, because a lot of the boxes I bought sight unseen, I didn't really see what was in the individual boxes. I only saw the photos before. So now I look at the box, it has a little description of what's in it. I take 1 or 2 boxes about every day, bring them home, open them up, and start going through all the pieces inside. So this is a very similar situation to unwrapping Christmas presents, and I get to have it pretty much every day, and I don't know how many days it's gonna take, probably over a month for sure with all the boxes. But now I have all of this, everything that I want to sell, I have to send it out to be photographed, and I'm gonna list it on Etsy. Everything that I want to keep, I need to find a place for it. There's quite a few items that need service, so I need to make sure they're properly serviced. So yeah, basically that full-time thing that I was anticipating, that's exactly what's happening right now. One big reason why I started this YouTube channel is that I want to introduce myself to all my buyers and my potential buyers and introduce them to this gigantic motherload of cameras that are going to be available for them in my store. I'm also going to do a bunch of videos on some unique and special cameras, because there were some pieces that I've never seen before and they're pretty hard to find and there's no other material about them. So I imagine that camera collectors will be very interested in learning more about those unique marvels of camera engineering. The biggest reason why I'm doing everything is I eventually want to buy a large property, a rural property here in Ontario, and I want to have a foster facility for rescue dogs. My 2 dogs are rescues. We did a lot of work with my wife to make them social, to make them basically recover from whatever they had to live through as rescues. And now they are ideal pets. They are doing amazing in their obedience courses, and they are potentially going to be serious contestants in some of the dog sports. So my dream is to help save as many dogs as possible. I was inspired by this movie called Living in a Dog House. It's currently on Netflix. And yeah, this is basically the life I want to have, and the way to make money to make it happen is having my camera business. So if you're interested in seeing the way I go through this giant lot of cameras that I got, hit like and subscribe and you will know every time I produce a new video.